that fundamental ignorance, this distorted view of reality that we have, grasping onto self, grasping onto things existing independently, we end up with mental afflictions such as attachment, aversion, jealousy, and all the suffering comes from that. So therefore, if we really want to find this state of genuine happiness or inner well-being, we need to eliminate that fundamental ignorance from our mind. In other words, we need to engage in this Vipassana practice, and in the Theravada traditions, realizing this no self, or in the Mahayana traditions, realizing what's called emptiness, the fact that nothing exists independently. So if we engage in this, we can overcome mental affliction, find this state of genuine happiness. But of course, the wisdom practice on the concentration practice, because unless we have single-pointed concentration, we won't be able to realize no self or emptiness. We won't be able to penetrate the nature of reality because our mind is not stable and clear enough. And in order to engage in this concentration practice to develop single-pointed concentration, we need as a basis ethics, because if we don't have an ethical basis, then the mind is so agitated and disturbed, there's no way we can develop this concentration. So therefore, these are the three core elements, or the three main causes for genuine happiness. Anyone have any questions about this?
So, in terms of realizing, Israel said that we cannot realize selfness or emptiness without concentration. But what about, for example, some intellectual understanding, or is that inferential understanding of emptiness? Would that still be the case?
Yeah. So, of course, the question here is that, do we need this concentration or shamatha practice? Do we need to have that fully practiced to even get some sort of taste or even intellectual understanding of emptiness? No, of course the answer is no. But intellectual understanding of nature of reality is not enough. I mean, here we're talking about, in other words, the idea that everything's interdependent. I think actually probably most of us in this room intellectually accept that idea, that everything's interdependent, not too difficult to appreciate that at some level. But is that helping us in our life? That intellectual idea? Or another example is impermanence. We mentioned here the idea of impermanence. I think we all intellectually accept impermanence, the fact that everything's changing moment by moment. Science has proven it, we learned it at school. I think none of us here have any issue about not accepting impermanence. But our intellectual understanding of impermanence, is that helping us in our daily life at all? If we think about it a lot, maybe it helps this much. But our behaviour is not driven by our intellectual understanding. Our behaviour is driven by our instinctive habits. And now our instinctive habits are telling us things are not changing moment by moment. Actually, they're quite stable. They don't seem to be changing much at all. And instinctively, there seems to be an independent me here and an independent objective world out there. That's how we relate to the world, instinctively. Intellectually, if we think about it, we go, oh yeah, everything's interdependent. Yeah, okay, that sounds, I accept that. But that's not how we're behaving. So therefore, to find this genuine happiness, we need to shift that. And the only way we can do that is through the Vipassana practice and to come to a direct insight to the nature of reality. Intellectual is not enough. A little taste is not enough. We need to come to a direct insight. Then our instinctive habits start shifting. And the only way we can have a direct insight is if our mind is very stable, clear and focused, if we've got this single point of concentration, the shamatha. Okay. One more thing on this I'd like to mention is relating to this here idea of this emptiness, the idea that everything's interdependent. Now, of course, instinctively there seems to be an independent me here and an independent objective world there. And the Buddhist assertion is that that worldview, that perspective, is a distorted view of reality, and it's the root cause of our suffering. And so I think we really need to appreciate how that is a root cause of suffering, and the fact that we can eliminate that ignorance to be able to understand we can achieve this genuine happiness. Because otherwise, again, what's loving kindness has no meaning unless we can appreciate that. So how is this distorted view of reality, this instinctive sense that there's a me here and an independent world there, how is that the root cause of all of our mental afflictions and suffering? We'll use an example, these flowers here. Now it seems to me, or seems to all of us, I think, that there seems to be some flowers there, and I don't seem to be contributing to their existence in any way. Those flowers are existing there from their own side. I walk in the door, there's flowers there. I'm in no way contributing to the existence of these flowers. I think for most of us, that's instinctively how we see these flowers. Why is that a problem to see them in that way? The problem is that, let's say when we look at these flowers, and in all of our experiences, we have this mental factor of feeling present. And feeling in Buddhism is simply experiencing things as either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And we have that in every one of our experiences. We experience these things as either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Let's say when we look at these flowers, we have a pleasant experience. That pleasant experience, together with this instinctive perspective that those flowers exist independent of me, that will lead us to naturally assume there must be some attractive quality there that's causing my pleasant experience. So we'll see these flowers as inherently attractive or attractive from their own side. Or the flip side, of course, if we have an unpleasant experience, with the belief that those flowers exist independent of me, we'll naturally assume there must be some unattractive quality there that's causing my unpleasant experience. We'll see them as inherently unattractive or unattractive from their own side. Why is that a problem? The problem is, again, let's say we're looking at them when we're having a pleasant experience. The problem with that is, I like pleasant experiences. I want pleasant experiences. Those flowers seem to be causing my pleasant experience. I want those flowers, attachment. Or if I'm having an unpleasant experience, I don't like unpleasant experiences, I don't want unpleasant experiences, those flowers seem to be causing my unpleasant experience, get them out of here. So this distorted view of reality, seeing things as independent of ourselves, leads us to attachment to pleasant things, aversion to unpleasant things, and that's where the whole mess starts. All of our other mental afflictions come from those. And that's what's driving our behaviour and resulting in all of our suffering. So, therefore, this wisdom practice, vipassana practice of emptiness, is to come to realise there's no independent me, no independent flowers. That me and the flowers are interdependent. Or another way of saying that is, if we're having a pleasant experience, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Beauty's not there, it's in the eye of the beholder. But of course that doesn't mean we're just fabricating it, we're hallucinating. There is beauty, but it's not there to be found. And if we can realise this interdependency, we can overcome that fundamental ignorance, we can eliminate all of those attachments, aversion, jealousy and mental afflictions and all of our suffering and find this genuine happiness. So if we understand this, then cultivating this aspiration, may I and others have happiness and its causes, makes sense and has some meaning. Otherwise, again, it's just words. It's nice words, may I and others be happy, but it's simply words that don't translate into anything. Whereas if we appreciate this, then when we cultivate the aspiration of loving kindness for ourselves and others, then that will lead us, for when we're cultivating loving kindness for ourselves, may I have happiness and its causes. That will lead us to engaging in those three practices for actually achieving that result. Will lead us to practice ethics, concentration, and wisdom, and thereby strive for that genuine happiness that we're aspiring to in terms of loving kindness. And that loving kindness for others will lead us to help others to engage in these practices as well, so they can find genuine happiness as well. How do we practice loving kindness? In the meditation texts, they usually say we are to practice these loving kindness in 4 stages. That first, we cultivate loving kindness to our friends because it's most easy, wishing our friends to have happiness and causes. Once we're comfortable with that, the next stage is expand that out to include people we don't know very well, the so-called strangers. Once we're comfortable with that, we expand it out to the next level, to the so-called difficult people, the so-called enemy. And then eventually we expand it out to all living beings. But I think in our modern society, and this is often not mentioned in the meditation texts, is we need to add one more step at the beginning. And that is to cultivate loving kindness for ourselves. Because I think historically people tended to feel pretty okay about themselves. But I think in our modern society that's often not the case. So if we're not feeling kind or compassionate to ourselves, there's no way we can expand that out to others. So that's where we need to start. So I think for many of us, we need to start by cultivating this loving kindness for ourselves first, and then expanding out to others. And here, in terms of the loving kindness practice, so again, the loving kindness practice in the Theravada Buddhist traditions generally is what's called immeasurable loving kindness. That we are cultivating loving kindness toward immeasurable sentient beings, immeasurable living beings, towards all living beings. In the Mahayana, we take that another level. That as a basis we have immeasurable loving kindness. The next level is what's called great loving kindness, because this immeasurable loving kindness is simply the wish for ourselves and others to have happiness and causes. Great loving kindness is the next level where we actively try to help others to find that state of genuine happiness. And then, of course, the highest level is this cultivation of this aspiration of bodhicitta, which is actually going to be sort of the topic for next month's talk when I'm here. We're going to be looking at this more in detail. So what I'd like to do now is to do a loving kindness meditation, primarily focusing on ourselves. Then I'd like to talk a little bit about the difference between loving kindness and attachment. Then we'll have a short break. I'll continue that discussion and do another meditation expanding out to others. So if you'd like to find a nice comfortable posture, we'll do that now. As an act of loving kindness for yourself, allow your awareness to descend into the body, simply becoming aware of sensations throughout the body. And using the out-breath to relax and release any tightness or tension in any part of the body. Bringing your awareness to the area of your face and softening and relaxing all the muscles in the face. Mouth and jaw soft and relaxed. And all the muscles around the eyes soft and relaxed. In this way, allowing the entire body to become completely relaxed, completely at ease. Allowing the breathing to settle into its natural rhythm. Not trying to control or regulate the breath in any way. And then give yourself permission to let go of any hopes or fears, worries or concerns about the past or the future. To give yourself permission to let go of all of these things for the duration of this short meditation. And simply allow the mind to come to rest in the present moment. Focusing on the sensations of the breath throughout the body. Loving kindness is the wish or aspiration for ourselves and others to have happiness in its causes. And we can begin by cultivating loving kindness for ourselves and then expanding that out to others. Now, no matter how much mental afflictions are in our mind, no matter how much attachment, anger, jealousy, craving, anxiety, and so forth are in our mind, these are not part of the nature of our mind. They are merely like dirt covering the surface of our mind. And beneath these mental afflictions is the natural purity of our mind. So imagine this inner purity of your mind in the form of a small, white, radiant sphere of light in the center of your chest at the level of your heart. And we can cultivate loving kindness toward ourselves by reflecting on 4 points. And the first one is, what are your deepest aspirations in this life? What is your heart's desire? What would you really like to achieve in life? And try to picture your deepest aspirations very clearly. And then arouse the thought, may I realize the genuine happiness that I seek. And then with each out-breath, imagine rays of light radiating out from the sphere of light at your heart, filling your entire body and mind. Imagining that your deepest aspirations are being actualized here and now. Now, the second point to reflect on is, in order to fulfill your highest aspirations, What kinds of material assistance would you love to receive from the world around you? And what kinds of friendship and guidance would you love to receive from the people around you? And then arouse the thought, may I receive everything that I need to help me realize the genuine happiness that I seek. And then with each in-breath, imagine reality rising up in the form of white light, streaming in from all directions, providing you with everything you need. The help that we receive from the world around us is not enough for us to realize the genuine happiness that we seek. For this, inner transformation is essential. So the third point is, how would you love to transform and evolve as a person? What faults would you love to be free of? What qualities would you love to possess and cultivate? And then arouse the thought, may I cultivate the true causes of my own fulfillment. And then with each out-breath, imagine rays of light radiating out from your heart, filling your body and mind. Imagining that you're actually transforming into that person that you want to be. That person with those qualities and free of those faults. And then finally, for the sake of your own fulfillment, and to make your life as meaningful as possible, what would you truly love to offer to the world, using your own unique talents? And then with each out-breath, imagine the white light of loving kindness radiating out in all directions from your heart. Imagining that you're actualizing this offering to the world right here and now. And then simply release all appearances and allow the mind to come to rest. And simply rest in that inner purity of your mind. Which is in the essence of loving kindness. What is the difference between loving kindness and attachment? Because in Buddhism, of course, we are cultivating loving kindness fully, but also at the same time in Buddhism, we're trying to eliminate attachment fully. But often it seems to be some difficulty when we say those two things. And often people feel like in a relationship they seem to be the same thing, actually. And often people say that, well, if I get rid of attachment, then how am I going to have a relationship with anyone? Because I need attachment to have a relationship. And I think the problem often comes here from the word, attachment. Particularly, I think that word attachment, as it's used in psychology and in Buddhism, is not the same thing, the way that that word is used. And in fact, I've got a couple of definitions of the word attachment here in psychology. One is, it's an enduring emotional tie to a special person characterized by a tendency to seek and maintain closeness, especially during times of stress. Another definition of attachment in psychology is a feeling that binds one to a person, thing, cause, or the like. And another definition, a feeling of affection for a person. And some synonyms for the word attachment are affection, devotion, regard, loyalty, love. So it seems like the word attachment can have a very positive flavour to it in psychology, because often we hear about attachment theory, and often we talk about that we need to actively cultivate healthy forms of attachment. And the example that's often given is the strong bond between mother and child. Of course, Buddhism would say, yes, we need to have a strong bond between mother and child. In fact, we need to have a strong bond between everyone. But that strong bond, we wouldn't use the word attachment to describe that. In fact, the word attachment in Buddhism is defined as a measure and hold the object. Why? Because attachment sees that object as a source of our happiness. And so what we need to appreciate is not only that how the word attachment is used in psychology and Buddhism is not the same, but what we need to appreciate is that in a relationship, there are two dynamics going on. There's the healthy dynamic of loving kindness and the unhealthy dynamic of attachment. And usually they're mixed together and they're not easy to see individually. Love, or loving kindness, of course, in a relationship, as we've seen here, is simply the wish for that person to be happy. Of course, the fine print is without expecting anything in return, what we would call unconditional love or no strings attached love. Conditional love or strings attached love is love or loving kindness polluted by attachment. And that sounds like this: I will love you as long as, and here comes the condition, as long as you continue to say and do things that make me happy. Otherwise, no. So that's attachment speaking. So very simply, the way to distinguish between loving kindness and attachment in a relationship, loving kindness is simply saying, I want you to be happy. Attachment is saying, I want you to make me happy. So attachment is all about me, 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 me. And actually attachment sees the other person as a thing, an object to satisfy me. Not very nice. So therefore, if we can distinguish these two elements, and of course those elements will be present in all of our relationships, to distinguish the two, and to increase the healthy part, the loving kindness, the wish for them to be happy, and try and decrease the attachment part, which is simply about me, me, me. If we can decrease that as much as possible, then our relationships will improve. And what we need to appreciate is that our life is pervaded by attachment. And not to think by next week, I'll get rid of attachment. That's not going to happen. That'll be a lifelong endeavour to keep reducing the amount of attachment. The more we can, the more our relationships will improve. One last thing, and then we'll take a break. Often in Buddhism we talk about, or we hear people say things like, we are to love everyone equally. And then, of course, when people hear that, they often get some strange idea what Buddhism is actually saying. Because remember, for us, love usually means emotion or certain type of behavior. But remember, love or loving kindness in Buddhism is an aspiration. So when Buddhism says to love everyone equally, we're not saying, oh, you have to spend the same amount of time with everyone and behave in the same way with everyone. This would be a disaster. To love everyone equally, what that really means is to equally wish everyone to be happy. That we can aspire to. And then how we express that loving kindness will be very individual. That loving kindness we would express to our partner in probably a very intimate way and spend a lot of time with them. That same loving kindness we would express to our family members in a different way and spend less time with them probably. And that same loving kindness we would express that to our neighbours and work colleagues in a very different way and maybe spend no time with them. So that's what we need to keep in mind about this idea of loving everyone equally. Okay. Let's have a break there, a 10-minute break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about this attachment, and then we'll do another loving kindness meditation and then some time for Q&A. But let's take a break. So I think there's tea and biscuits out in the cafe over there. So 10-minute break and we'll come back.